Hello, everybody. This is the Stronghold podcast, episode 20. I'm here with one of my best friends, Ahmed Zareh. Ahmed is the MIMMA, the current MIMMA welterweight champion. He's one of my oldest friends. We know each other from going way back. We know each other from the Evolve days, from the Trifecta days, from the Clinch days.
Oh, yeah.
He's also a professional Muay Thai fighter, and we've been on this martial arts journey pretty much together for the better part of a decade. What's going on, dude?
It's good, man. What's good?
He's also an architect.
Chilling.
I always said your
Yeah.
fight name should be the Architect of Destruction. Just saying.
Oh, that's really good. I
Right?
wish I knew that one before. Yeah, I would have used it.
It was good, man. So how you doing? We've been talking about doing this podcast for ages. Unfortunately, I prefer to do them face to face, but given the situation, this is as good a time as any. I figured to sit here and chat for a while.
Yeah, I think hundreds of kilometers is an appropriate social distance. So you're in Singapore. I'm here in Malaysia. This wouldn't have been possible without the beauty of technology. So here we are.
Although we should say that, just full disclosure, there is a little bit of audio issues because you are in Malaysia and it's not Singapore. No offense, Malaysians.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to be elitist, bro. I'm back in Singapore now.
Yeah, actually, I can't really defend this. The Wi-Fi in here is terrible.
You know what's weird, dude? Even as I was saying this, fuck, we've been training together for a long ass time, going back to the Evolve days. In 2000 and, or no, yeah, when the fuck, what? I meet you in 2013, 14? When were you training at
I don't
Evolve?
know. I moved to Singapore in 2011, I want to say, and I started training at Evolve like soon thereafter.
Well, when I met you, you were like a one stripe white belt, I think. So that's probably
Okay,
about
so
right.
maybe that was 2012, I
Yeah,
think.
that sounds about right. So,
2012.
yep, almost 10 years, dude. Isn't that
Yeah,
fucking-
you were like horrible to roll with.
What?
I hated training with you.
What?
Yeah,
What?
no, because at that time you were like this like thick wrestler dude who just like get on top and just like smother. Like it was just like basically just the wrestler's version of jiu-jitsu. Get on top, smother me in side control, just crush me with your steady heavy beer belly at the time.
Yeah,
It was awful.
I was almost 80 kilos back then, dude.
Yeah. It was not pleasant, man. It was
This
really
is
not
news to
pleasant.
me. This is news to me. I did not know you didn't like training with me back in the day.
No, it got better. It got better. I mean, obviously, when I slowly improved, it got better.
Well, I was a purple belt
But
then, and you were like a one or two stripe white belt. So I think generally most one or two stripe white belts aren't going to enjoy rolling with the purple belts.
yeah, it was miserable. But also your particular style sucked. I
I
didn't
was
enjoy.
overcompensating, dude. I was overcompensating also. Honestly. I didn't have the technique back then, even as a purple belt. So I would have to, seriously, so I would just have to like do that kind of shit. Squeeze people, use my athleticism, use my wrestling base. Because I was like a wrestler, jiu-jitsu guy, but I was like 85% wrestler. I didn't have any fucking technique. I was such a noob, even as a purple
Yeah.
belt.
I mean, you could just tell like the different kind of body structures when you're dealing with them, like where they like what backgrounds they come from. Like the wrestler dudes are just like they're always on top of you. They're always like inside control, just like smashing your face, you know.
Dropping
The
the
judo
shoulder pressure of
guys,
doom on your neck.
yeah, exactly. Shoulder pressure, side control, spinning around, being really fast, really athletic. And but it's better than judo guys. I hate rolling with judo guys because they're either like extremely explosive with their submissions, or they're very boring and don't want to do anything like don't want to pass guard, don't want to like play guard. They're strong judo position.
And they don't shoot, which is fucking annoying. Like if you're training with them, and they're all very stiff too. They're all really, judo people, and they break grips and shit. It fucks my hands up every time I roll the judo person. I'm just like, ow, God, ow. I'm a
Exactly.
wrestler, dude. I want to grab those sleeves and lapels and stuff. But it's interesting, dude, because I used to be such an athletic based style with like zero technique, and it really was just overcompensating. I think now I've gone too far in the other direction though. Now when I roll, I tend to be way too like fucking idiot jujitsu guy doing nothing with zero explosiveness, upside down, being lazy. You can get away with that stuff the better your technique gets. So I think I've gone too far.
You could also be getting older. I mean, that happens too. That's happened to me. I don't know. Like my jiu-jitsu game has gotten really kind of like lax and lazy, and I think it was also after. I think when I was training in Singapore, because I was training with a lot of like higher belts, belts that were higher than me, tons of black belts, brown belts and stuff, my game was more aggressive. And then as I moved to Malaysia and I was training with a lot more white belts and blue belts, my games kind of just became like super relaxed because I could relax, you know? And then I don't know. I mean, I feel like my progress kind of slowed down because I kind of like rested on like that space between my skill level and everybody else's skill level.
Yeah.
But when I was in Singapore and I was like constantly being like pushed and tapped, and you know that I had to like push myself to reach the level of my training partners, that's when my game was the most like aggressive and athletic.
Well, there is a trap that you can kind of get into, right? When you do have more roles. I'll give you an example. It even happens in Muay Thai and shit. And you called me out on it one day on our group chat because it was like, most of my roles and most of my sparring matches are like what I would call teaching roles, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to beat my white belt or blue belt. I'm not trying to beat him up. Like I let him do stuff. I let him pass my guard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I let him work. Like if I can't get out of a armbar attempt from a blue belt, like I probably shouldn't even be doing that. And the same thing with the sparring. Like I'll throw deliberately slow, like kind of bad shit to give him an opening.
Mm-hmm.
But so in some sense, it does. You do need to do that. But on the other side, if that becomes the primary method of your training, your technique's just going to erode over the years. And I do feel like I've gotten into a little bit of that. What I need to do more of is those kind of teaching sparring rounds and rolling rounds while also making sure that I keep my technique sharp and not just like fucking flop around like an idiot.
Yeah.
Good advice, generally speaking. Don't flop around.
Yeah. I think you ended on a strong note there. No, I think I've had to deal with that a lot in Muay Thai sparring, um, where I am like sort of put with people that I have to teach, or I'm just put with people who are smaller than me, or put with people who may not have like the same kind of technical background. Um, so I find that for myself, what helps is just choosing one attribute that I want to work on, or one technique that I want to work on, or say, okay, like this round, I'm not going to throw, I'm just going to defend and sweep. That's all I'm going to do. So defend things that they throw at me, sweep. This round, I'm not going to use my teeps. I'm just going to use like, round kicks to defend myself. This round, I'm only going to use like stiff arms to defend myself, that kind of stuff.
It's like specific training almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it's either you kind of drop your level to meet their level, which doesn't really benefit them, because the issue being like the higher level that's dropping down to their level is that they're still in their minds, you're still the higher level guy, so they're going to attack you as if you're still the higher level guy. You know.
I think that's
So
why
all you've done is made your
go ahead.
It's made it more dangerous for you. That's all it is.
Yeah. I think that's also why it's always nice, like, if Krunoy's there, if there's a coach there, because then you can still do that, but you got to watch full eye because, like, even when I do it, I don't even realize that I'm doing it half the time. But then, like, I'll watch a video of myself and I'm like, oh, God, what the fuck was that? Horrible technique, like punches not coming back to your chin sticking straight up in the air. And then you're just like, oh, that's nasty.
Yeah.
Kind of need that watchful hand to observe you and make sure that you're not, going too far in either direction, either A, being an asshole, or B, just, being too loose and not sharp enough.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people listening to the podcast, dude, tell everybody like your training, like, how many fights you've had, your disciplines, all that kind of stuff. Most people in the scene here know who you are, but.
Okay. I've had more MMA fights than anything else. I'd say that. I'm trying to think about this. I'm a purple belt. I am considered a professional Muay Thai fighter. Only had one professional Muay Thai fight. And I've had seven MMA fights. Shit.
Sounds about right.
Three, and yeah, I'm clearly not keeping count of my record. I don't really care about these things.
You've had a bunch of amateur Muay Thai fights too. So you probably had between 10 and 15.
Yeah, around there. Like I've had, I think two or three amateur Muay Thai fights, one pro Muay Thai fight, about nine, I want to say 8 or 9 MMA amateur fights. and then a bunch of jiu-jitsu matches.
I mean, you're pretty seasoned, dude. You've had a lot of competition experience.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
That MIMMA tournament format, dude, that'll get you a lot of fights really quick. Every month, I remember coming down to KL how many times did you fight in that last season?
I had only about like maybe
4?
5 fights. No, it was like 5 or 6 fights in my last season. I think 6 fights.
And that's in like a few months. That they churn them out.
Yeah, that was like over the course of say 9 months. And I was supposed to have more, but I had opponents pull out on me. Like several opponents pulled out. Like Kevin and I, my teammate and friend, we were both in the same bracket, in the same tournament, and basically we just like, I think after our first couple of fights, people could see like saw how we fought, so we just pulled out. And so in the end, it was like we had, I think, far fewer fights than we would have had. But if we had all the fights we should have had, it would have been like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 fights that year.
Yeah, Teben's going to come on the podcast in a couple days, so that's perfect. You guys can
cool.
throw a little shade to each other if you want. Now's the time.
No, man, we tried doing that, like, cause we were supposed to.
Tell everybody the story. Yeah, give everybody the quick background for you and Teben, because he's coming on the podcast in a couple days.
Okay, so Teben and I, we've been training together for a while, about like 3 years, I want to say. He was the MIMMA champion before me, so I actually helped him train like up to that championship fight. And then when it was time for like last MIMMA, I think MIMMA 2017, both of us entered the tournament. We both entered the same tournament, the same bracket. For me, it was like a last minute like whim. I was just like, oh, I've got nothing else to do. Like I haven't been able to set a Muay Thai fight. It's like I should just fight MIMMA.
Bro, you should have got a different weight class. Teben's probably like, bro, what the fuck? Like, why did you do that? Last year, you're gonna come in here and fuck this shit up.
I know. That definitely makes me the asshole. But at the time, I didn't think I was gonna like actually go through it with the tournament. I was like, I just go in, try out, be fun, I can speed up some random, get like a fight. Because I was just gonna go there just for the tryout. And then in the tryout, the organizers knew me because I fought MIMMA back in like 2014. That was when we started training together, like MMA wise. So the organizers were like, all right, well, we'll make this interesting. They set up fucked up like tryout match for me. Everybody else had like a tryout fight, so they give you like, I think it was 1 round. They pulled like a random person for you to fight, right? And so you have to fight 1 round standing. I think 1 round they started like say the blue corner would be on the bottom, the red corner would be on top.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
I forgot about that.
The third round would be like, I think red corner would, and just reverse it, right?
Yeah.
Red corner's on bottom, blue corner's on top. But for me, they had a starting stand up, and I basically like TKO'd the guy. Yeah, what? I'm in the middle of something. All right, so for me, they started the match standing up, right, like everybody else, and I TKO'd the guy in like the first 30 seconds or something. And so they're like, all right, fuck it, okay, you're on your back. So I got put on my back, and then I go plata the guy.
You go plata the guy? Yeah. Just flexing on him, dude, like throwing random fucking submissions.
Yeah, no, one of our the coach, my coach at the time, David, he was like yelling at me from outside the ring. He's like, if you don't go plata this guy, I'm gonna unfriend you from Facebook.
What?
So
serious threat.
So I go plata him. And then after that, they're like, okay, you restart, but this time you're in side control. So I was side control bottom, and I escaped. And I got on top, and I was like ground and pound. And then they restarted again with me on.
Is this a different guy every time, or
yeah? They restarted again. No, it was the same guy. I felt bad for the guy because like the guy still had to be in there with me. Like he was getting frustrated. So like
the technical level is clearly too much.
Yeah, it was like, okay, dude, like you can
change the position.
The point has been made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, he was probably like hurting from like the first TKO.
Knockout.
Yeah, I was essentially like
Okay.
it was like I kneed him in the stomach and then like uppercutted him and it was like finishing with like hitting him with my hands a lot and the referee waved it off. So that was how this whole thing started. And then he had to like stay with me as they restarted and restarted and restarted. Um,
How'd
I
you
think the
feel when you're
last thing
just
they,
beating on this dude? Like you're like, come on, man. Like, come on, ref. What are we doing here?
I mean, it was kind of cool at the same time because he was like flexing, like flexing hard, like uh, doing stupid chokes and reversing yourself, like getting out of bad positions easily and all that stuff. But they started him with like on my back. And that was like the last thing. He was on my back. They restarted it, and I escaped and finished on top, ground and pound. So that's how the tournament started. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I think I'm just gonna end it here. Obviously, I wanted to continue. This was a strong start. It was entertaining. Everybody was like, you know, the MIMMA people were all asking me to get back in and you know continue. And I spoke to Teben about it. We had a we had a chat like me with Teben and our coach, um, and you know they were like, well, how do we do this? I would think, should I
You guys
continue? Should I
trained at
not
the same
continue?
gym. You guys trained at the same gym. You trained
Yeah, we
together.
trained
Same
in
weight
the same
class.
gym, same weight class, trained together. I mean,
He's the previous champion.
we
You helped him train.
yeah, he was the last year. I would presumably I would fight him, right? If I went through the whole way through the tournament. Um, so we were like, how do we do this? And he's like, you know what, fuck it. Like we help each other train. Let's just both go through this tournament. Let's beat up all these dudes together. As a karate guy, Teben is used to fighting his own teammates. So it's an interesting thing. Like karate, like you I guess it's normal to have multiple teammates within the same weight class because they'll have such huge brackets, uh, and so they're fighting people that they train with like all the time. It's not like jujitsu where you close out brackets and you
Only
do that kind of
jujitsu
thing. But
does that thing
yeah,
where it's like people won't compete against their own teammates, which is insane to me.
yeah.
They roll together
Other
all the
combat
time.
sports won't allow it. So like
Yeah.
apparently karate, uh, they're saying like they fight their own teammates to get on the national team.
Yeah.
So it's just a part of like the process for them, you know. So he was like, yeah, no problem, man. I'm game for it. I was
Awesome.
like, okay, sure, let's do
Yeah.
this.
Beat each other up
So
and everyone else's entertainment. Hell yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was like it was a running joke about what we would do like coming up to it. We're like, oh, maybe we should like do like a choreographed fight scene or something, or like maybe we should just do something, you know, like we pull our punches or something like that. And you know, as like the day drew closer, you know, we were like, as I think we reached our last fights within the tournament, um, that's when the conversation became a lot more serious. And
Because you don't know that you're going to even necessarily meet in the finals, right? I mean,
yeah,
the possibilities
I
there, but
mean,
until it's real, it's not
possibly,
real, right?
yeah. Like I kind of like scouted the bracket, and I knew okay, there's like maybe two or three guys here that are potentially dangerous. You know, outside of T-Ben, there was like takeaway. This another guy. What's his name? Aaron, I think. Aaron something. I don't remember his last name. And then Hazarul, who was like another former champion. So if I could make it past those three guys, then it's definitely gonna be us two in the final. So Teben made it past takeaway first, and then it was me, and then he made it. I think he fought Hazarul in his second round. I also fought Hazarul in my last round. I was like, okay, it's the time, right? So when we were like about to start training for each other, we had a little conversation, and I was like, okay, so I'm not really sure how to go about this. You know, now that it's real, now that it's like an actual reality that we're gonna fight each other. You know, maybe we should do some sort of like have like a gentleman's agreement. You know, like we only go for submissions, or we only do like you know we don't hit each other full on or something like that. And team's like, no, I think we should just fight.
Yeah.
We should just fight for real. I was just like, oh,
Damn it.
okay. Like,
well, it's weird,
I mean,
right?
the back
Because
of
you guys are friends, you're buddies, you're training
yeah,
partners,
yeah.
and at a certain point, you
Also,
have to be like, okay, how are we gonna do this? We just, yeah, you just could beat each other up, and that's that.
yeah. I mean, also, Tevon's really fucking strong.
Yeah,
Like,
he's really
Tevon's a
strong.
strong dude.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
He's
yeah, he's strong as shit. He hits hard. He hits hard.
and I've never been hit by him 100%. So the thing in training is like
Yeah,
you never know what your training partner's 100% is, or at least you shouldn't know. If you know what your training partner's 100% is, then your training partner's an asshole.
yeah,
You
totally.
shouldn't be hitting your training partners like 100%. So I was like, has he been hitting me 10%, 20%,
Then it
50,
becomes a mental
fucking
game,
80%?
right? You just start
See, I
going
was like,
over your head.
I don't know. Like the first clean shot that he landed on me, I was like, oh Jesus Christ. He's been hitting me like at like 30% this whole time.
Yeah.
And now I know what his 100% is like. This sucks.
Was it that shot in the cage when you shot down and he hammer fisted you in the
Yeah, it
I
was
saw your reaction with
the
that one. I was like, oh,
oh my God. It
that's a
was
brutal shot, man.
the first like single leg. I think I got to like single leg position. I got lazy with my head position. You know, your coaches always tell you you got to put your head like up when you're going for the
Chest.
single leg
Yeah.
in the chest. And I got kind of lazy with it, had my head down. I immediately realized why I had to put my head up. He just like, boom, like Donkey Kong punched me straight in the face. And I had this like massive welt for the rest of the fight. For like the rest of the week, I had a massive welt from that one punch. And I pretty much blacked out on my feet just from that. I think T-Ben hit me maybe 3 times clean in that fight. And each one of those fights, each one of those strikes, I was just, oh God, no, I can't take another one of these. So that was the first strike that he landed on me, and it almost ended it right there. Like I basically like flashed out for a second, and came back, and then finished the takedown. And thank God I did, because that would have been it. So
That was in like the first just few seconds of the fight.
that was the first. That was the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, if your head goes near the hip when you're going for a takedown, especially when you're pressed up against the cage, and the thing is, like, you know, you wear those big fat in the amateurs, you wear the big, was it 8-ounce glove? But there's
7
not
ounces.
there's not shit here. There's nothing there. So if you're eating that hammer fist on the side of the head, there's nothing covering that part of the hand. So that's as hard a punch as you can eat in any fight.
I literally had somebody warn me about that, like the
Me?
day before.
I was
Yeah, you warned me about that. Yes.
That was me, bro. Because Silvio did the same thing
also,
to me. And I went lightheaded instantly, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And T-Ben's like
it's
10
awful
times
because your temple is right there.
Yeah,
like your temple is right there on this, like right by his hip. So all he has to do is kind of punch himself with the dick, and then it's fine.
boom, and you generate a ton more power going down. Like if you think of chopping wood, right? You generate tons more force going downward like that than you can ever going straight. So, like, first of all, you're getting a shitload more force than you can actually generate with a straight punch. Second of all, it's not covered, right? Because it's the open part of the glove. Yeah, it's bad news, dude. It's bad news.
Yeah, yeah. You're telling the story, I think, on like one of the previous podcasts about like when T-Ben and I were exchanging in the cage. There was like, I don't know if that was the only moment. That was definitely like the one that I remember the clearest. The whole fight is kind of a blur. But like I was on top. I was punching him. He tried to like, he was like reaching over or something like that, and he tried to like spin back around. But he like clipped me with an elbow, and he was.
And I said something. I was like, elbow.
Yeah, Tim was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, dude." And I was just like, "No, it's all right, man." And then you're just like, "Fuck it, man, just keep punching him." And just this is the whole while I'm still punching him. He's still trying to like defend himself.
And you guys are talking, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
He accidentally did the elbow. I called it out because I'm the coach, right? And then he apologized. And then the people, the camera people next to us started laughing. So there's like this whole dialogue going on while two friends are sitting there beating the shit out of each other in the middle of a fight of an accidental foul. It's beautiful stuff, man. Like nobody was mad.
Yeah.
Nobody was like making a huge deal about it. It was like you said, that gentleman's agreement. You're just going to go there. You're going to fight. Whatever happens, happens. Your friends before, your friends after, you know, and this doesn't have to be this insanely blown up thing in your head. You can just go there, have a fun scrap, you know what I mean, and move on with your life.
But there's different kind of mentalities when you prepare yourself to get in the cage. Uh, for T-Ben, he's like, this guy's like a seasoned competitor. Like, so he's been competing in karate since he was a kid. He's been in all sorts of situations. He he doesn't need to kind of like mentally prepare himself. Not to the same, not like in the sense like you have to hype yourself up or anything. Like I've seen him meditate before fights or like go out, breathe, whatever, get in the zone. But for me, I have to like get myself to like dark space. I have to like get myself angry first, because I have to dehumanize my opponent. Like I think some people look at it like it's a game. This is like a competition. I'm going to a game. For me, like there's like that level of, yeah. I mean, I have a certain part of it is, yes, it's a game, it's a competition, but the other part of it for me is like getting myself in the mind space where I want to cause damage.
I'm gonna hurt someone.
And yeah, I want to hurt someone. So in order to do that, I have to really like fucking work myself up. I have to get like aggressive. I have to go into like this dark space. I have my hoodie on. I have everything. And so it was weird because like T-Ben's not like that.
Yeah, he's so approachable
So
and friendly, and like,
he's like a golden retriever. Like he just wants to be like, it's cool, man. Like, all right, good luck. Fist bump before the match and everything.
and you're just
I'm
like,
trying
fuck off.
yeah, actually,
I'm mad at you right now. And he's like, what? Why?
And so like we had to like walk out there, right? Like and the walkout area, he is right before me. Him and his corners. You were there, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you were there.
I was in your
yeah,
corner
so,
with your brother.
yeah, it's you and Essan were in my corner. So him and his corners right in front of us.
And it's
And he's
all the
like,
people from the same gym. Everybody's from the same gym. That's why
and
it's
you
hilarious.
can tell like T-Ben wants to like fist bump with me. He's like looking back. He's like, hey. And I was just like, fucking, don't look at me. Don't look at me because you're my friend. If I look at you, then I'm gonna feel bad about what's gonna happen. So I had to like go full like Nate Diaz with it, like cursing to myself and stomping around.
Fuck this dude.
Psyched out. Pretty much.
Stop
So
it,
we
motherfucker.
very different mentalities.
Yeah.
Like in the preparation of the fight. But I think once we were both in there, then we have very similar kind of yeah, similar like fight personalities, I guess you could say. Like I'm not too worried about like I don't feel like angry when I'm in there. When I'm in there, it's just kind of like the focus.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, it tends to be the walk. Like, I mean, because the nerves.
It's the worst part.
Yeah, the nerves spike right when you're on your way there, like 10 minutes, like right when the previous fight before you is going on. That's when you're really like, you start to get a little amped up, and then the walk. Like once the first punch is thrown, like all of that shit goes away, and you're in that flow state. You're in that state of reaction where you don't have time to really process what's happening. It's just reaction. So you can't really sort out how you're feeling at that particular point in time because it's so immediate, the urgency of the fight. And then you can kind of get into that state where you can make a joke and you can laugh as you're punching each other and all that kind of stuff. But man, the walk and the 10 minutes before you step in there, that's when you get that surreal thing that happens where you're like almost out of body and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like,
it's the
horrible
worst
decision that I made.
I don't know. For me, like there's the whole thing is a haze up until the moment where you're actually fighting. Even like where you get together and like refs there and you're just like, are you ready? Are you ready? Like I'm hearing it from distance. Like it's just like fog. And only when I go back and you go like, you go back to your corners and you're about to come out, that's when it's like kind of the fog starts to clear and you're there.
Dude, I remember you were pretty fucked up in that fight. I have this picture of us that me, you, and Essan took like this within 10 or 15 seconds of the fight being over, and bro, your lights were on, but there was nobody home. Like you were.
Dude, no, there was a gigantic welt on my face.
Your eyes
like,
swollen up.
It was rough.
Fatigue, like you could tell. You ate some tough body shots in that fight. I remember for sure too. Like, yeah, I think there was a kick to the body.
A kick.
A snap kick. He hit you in the stomach or something that I thought was going to drop you.
Oh. Man, there were all these things where like I remember that year and then the year before we had been like kind of trying to train T-Ben to use his side kicks a lot. his side kicks and the snap kicks and all that stuff. And
He
the
kicks
minute
like a
he hit me with
fucking
one,
mule, dude. He kicks.
yeah, dude,
He hit me with a spinning back
I
kick
was,
in training one time. I thought I was going to shit my pants. And he wasn't even throwing it hard. I was like, dude, if
yeah,
he would have thrown that hard, I would be on the ground in agony. Like, I was like, oh no, this is a problem. Like, as soon as he hit me with it.
the whole fight, I was worrying about those fucking kicks. It's like, as long as he doesn't hit me with one of those kicks, I'm fine.
I'd rather be hit
And
in
then
the face.
and he hit
Honestly.
me with one of the. I think he hit me in like the third round, and I was like, oh no, oh no.
I'm going to shit my pants on TV
Yeah,
in front of everybody.
I was so worried. I was so worried. Just,
Which is
please
hilarious because
don't hit me with another one.
you're the one of the hardest kickers I know. So that's why it's hilarious that you were concerned about his kicks.
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing about that fight was that it was more of like a Muay Thai based MMA background against a more of a karate based MMA background.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so like my brother and I, because I think you came on board like for the fight itself.
Yeah.
So SN and I were like working on strategy leading up to it. So my brother Esan, Jiu-Jitsu blue belt, but way, way more talented in Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling than I am. And we worked together like basically the whole way up through the tournament until this fight. And the whole strategy for T-Bin was like moving in a carving motion. So the carving meaning like how snowboarders when they carve and they do like that kind of in out kind of like slalom motion. You know what I mean? Like when you've seen like the snowboarders when they're going down like that tube. I don't know what it's called. Slalom. Yeah. Like,
you're trying to find your angles, right? You come in.
Yeah. So I'm constantly moving at an angle, either like kind of like this kind of weaving motion, like left and right. Because T-Bin, he's extremely strong, but he attacks, linearly, as karate guys do. That was the plan. That was the initial strategy. I think it worked for like the first round, maybe 2 rounds, and after that point, it was just like this fucking blur. I was just running at him, shooting takedowns. I don't remember much else. But the strategy was always like weave into clinching range, grab the clinch, take him down, or land knees, take him down, disconnect, punch, like shoot, disconnect, punch. Constantly making it more of an MMA match as opposed to a striking match, where I'm always either punching so I can get to his hips, or getting to his hips so I can land punches so I can get to his hips again. That up down twofold attack.
Yeah, well, when you fight somebody like that karate style, that blitzing, very linear, that you have to get inside without absorbing the damage, right? That's the trick. You can cut the range off, you can get inside, you pin him against the cage, you take him down. Once that space is gone, the power of the strikes and all that kind of stuff is mitigated. And we all thought going in that you were also sort of the better grappler, but dude, that was a back and forth fight. I'm really bummed out that there's no video of that fight. I've never seen a video of it. Have you seen anything?
That's what I was gonna say. You've talked about this fight twice now on your podcast, and I feel bad because I don't know where to find footage.
It's a great fight. It's the best Malaysian fight in history.
If you're watchers or listeners or whatever, like look it up. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing there. And this has been my big kind of. I appreciate everything Malaysian Invasion has done for the Malaysian scene. I think they were the guys who really kind of caused the whole MMA scene to explode in Malaysia. If it wasn't for them putting on this event, I don't think we'd have the same proliferation of gyms, the same size of the scene in Malaysia. It did huge things to the sport. But the two biggest issues I have. The first is that they did not do a good job with their media. Like, you produce all this content, where does it go?
I mean, the thing with T-Bin is crazy.
Where's it gone?
It's such a lost. I mean, he's like a super famous actor in Malaysia, and they have these epic fights of his that they could easily use to generate interest in. I mean, he's a fucking star. He's a superstar, and they are going to sit on this footage. It's insane.
But it's like 5 seasons. You're talking about 5 seasons, hundreds of fights. If I don't know, at least hundreds of fights, possibly thousands of fights because they have so many, like from the last 4 seasons. They're all like the tournament based fights, right? So you've like, you know, you could really like put together an archive of Malaysian MMA from all of the footage that these guys would have had, and they're all like, you know, pretty well shot. I've seen like the cage side footage. It's, you know, it's high quality. It's high quality footage, right? For an amateur production, that's huge. For the Malaysian scene, that would be huge. But this footage is all kind of evaporated. I've been chasing guys within MIMMA to try and find it. Teeman's been trying to find it. Like just our fight alone, we've been trying to find it. We haven't been able to find anybody with this footage.
Which is crazy
But
because
like,
the production value is really high. They're filming everything. It's a fucking
yeah,
beautiful venue. I mean, the venue that you guys fought in was fucking amazing. Like, what is the point of paying for that
yeah,
and having that high level of production value to just sit on it? I mean, you're right.
yeah,
That's a huge missed opportunity. I have no idea what they're doing. They could put it on YouTube and just like the fights alone and just the interest of
yeah,
YouTube, they could make ad revenue. Like, there's so many ways they could spin that to make money off of it. It just seems like a waste.
yeah. I mean, they poured like, I think 4 years, possibly more, 6 years worth of like budget into this uh, big event, and then they haven't like, it's just disappeared. In the age of the internet, where footage can exist like forever, all of this stuff has disappeared.
And content is
Um,
king. Release
yeah,
the content.
exactly.
Like,
So that, like, to me as an amateur production, that's the first factor that you kind of figure out. That's the first strategy that you develop is, what do we do with our content after we have produced our content? You know, do we have somebody who wants to buy it from us? If they're buying it, then what is the period? Is there like a leasing period? How does it work? Blah, blah, blah. Like, how many different avenues do we want to go down in order to, um, you know, to monetize this content? Uh, so that's the first thing that you should wrap your head around. And I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on that. And the second is that they haven't. I don't think they had enough people who had fighting backgrounds involved in the planning of their organization.
yeah, the
Yeah,
organization was a disaster in some ways of the actual, like, who fought who, this tryout thing that you're talking about. Like, I know the
yeah,
story of the heavyweight who didn't make it to the finals because when they saw his name, they just dropped out of the fight. And if you dropped,
yeah,
it was worth less points than if you had gotten a TKO or something like that. So he didn't make it to the finals, even though no one beat him because people kept dropping out when they fought him. And there was some huge organizational issues that they could have
yeah,
prevented. But even still, the quality was good. Even despite all of that, people were still down. There's definitely a
yeah,
lot of missed opportunities there, I think.
yeah. I mean, now like that team, some of the guys from the MIMMA team are still involved in the scene. They're doing like the IMMAF stuff.
Oh, is
They're
that
like they've
are they connected, the Mima guys and them?
uh they're not. I don't think they're directly connected to the IMMAF, but they're doing like the Malaysian MMA Association or something
Mm.
like that, which is then liaising with IMMAF to do like to have run Malaysia's involvement in their tournaments. So now that IMAF is becoming, you know, seems to have like this growing traction. Uh, I think Malaysia is still sending people to these kind of international tournaments. We had one of the girls from Malaysia won gold, I believe, in the last IMAF in her division. So the Malaysian scene is fairly strong. You know, it's just that I think we just need to get our organization a bit tighter.
A very typical
Like,
Malaysian problem, the organization being
yes, 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 it
the
is.
weakest
Yes, it
link.
is. Yes, it
Listen,
is.
I'll tell you, man, like, having spent, I mean, I've been in Singapore for the better part of a decade, with the only exception being the year that I was in KL. And the quality of the athletes, the toughness of the fighters, I mean, they're still growing, but God damn it, man, people there love MMA. They're extremely enthusiastic. They're extremely tough. They train all the time. And I would still say that, given good quality training partners and organized training, that Malaysia within Asia could still be a powerhouse of MMA. I mean, those guys are tough. They fight hard. They train all the time. They're so dedicated. You just want to see them do well.
Yeah, I think the good thing about Malaysia is that there's kind of a healthy and growing scene. I think the bigger the scene is, the more likely it is that you'll have like legit fighters coming out eventually. You know, I don't like we have a handful of these pro fighters coming out of Malaysia already. There's like there's Gianni Suga, there's Agalantani, there's um, Muhammad Aiman, uh,
Ev trained out of KL quite a lot.
Ev, yeah.
He does a little bit of both
There's
too.
so,
But
yeah, I kind of count him as a Kiwi, even though he
yeah,
represents Malaysia. Thanks for representing Malaysia, but his yeah. So you have like quite a few of these Malaysian fighters coming out, but I think like the next second, third, fourth generations will come once like that, you know, eventually once the scene has kind of reached its peak, once it's grown a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like there's a missed opportunity, like there's a big missed opportunity in both the organization of the organizations that are kind of like running the scene right now, as as well as like in the ability for these like tournaments and these organizing bodies to kind of unify the scene as well. I think yeah, if you don't have like a strong amateur competition scene, then like these smaller gyms um, don't really get like the venue to grow their fighters and grow their stables. So similar like the situation, I would say like in Singapore, a lot of good, there's a lot of strong gyms. There's not a lot of not a lot of venues for them. I think there's Ultimate Beatdown and there's SFC.
yeah.
Um, SFC has been, I think has not been as active
Yeah,
in the last few years.
that's well. The Alvin's coming out with his thing, the Lion City Championships. He's going to do that one as soon as this lockdown thing is over. You got the SFC.
Yeah,
That's pretty much it, but it is pretty inconsistent. I would say that's the number one problem. But Singaporeans have a huge benefit in the fact that they can travel to compete much more on a general level, I would say, than most Malaysians. You know,
mm,
so a lot of people here, if they want to be amateur fighters, they can go and fight overseas, and they can kind of afford to do that and have that as an option,
yeah,
which tends
yeah,
to be more difficult in Malaysia. And then, you know, to your point about the quality of the scene, that's you see stuff like Ultimate Beatdown, those guys taking pro fights with almost zero training. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
there's no amateur scene. I was just there with Faizan to fight, and you know, Ultimate Beatdown. If anyone's been, you know exactly what you're getting when you go there. It's basically just a verbal agreement, and most of those guys train for like a month. They they get in there and they fight. That's it. With very little training or experience.
Man,
It would be nice to see them have a more fleshed out amateur scene for sure.
I
Which
think
MIMMA
like
was awesome. MIMMA was awesome for that. It just
mm,
needs consistency, and then there's the way that they structure it has to be revamped, because that kind of fighting every month and then people pulling out and then giving points and all of that kind of stuff is silly. Just make a bracket, have everybody fight,
mm,
do the seeds, right? Like in the MIMMA thing, based on the records of everybody, Teben probably should be the number one seed because he was the champion. You should have been the number two seed. This person's the number three seed, four seed. Put them on the different end of the bracket and go. You don't need to
yeah,
have these points. Like dude, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's tournament formats throughout the world. Everybody knows how to make a
yeah.
successful martial arts tournament. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
So for people who may not know, the last tournament that I was in, the MIMA tournament, they did a league format, which I guess is something that they do in regular organized sports. But these are so it involves basically everybody fighting everybody, and then whoever has the most points then advances to the championship matches. Now that works in sports that don't involve getting punched in the face, right? You're talking about sports where like people can get knocked out or submitted or head kicked. It's a terrible idea. Um, there was one fight. Teben fought this guy who he just like obliterated. Okay, I should be a bit kinder. I mean, he basically TKO'd the guy in the first round, like uppercutted him several times until the dude collapsed. I thought for sure this guy's not coming back for the next round, right? Turns out they didn't rule it a KO. I guess they ruled it a TKO or doctor stoppage or something like that. But they allowed the guy to come back for the next round. And the next round he was fighting me.
Which would have been like
So
what, 3 weeks, a month later?
it was a month
In
later.
context, a
I
month
think
later,
yeah, a month later.
roughly.
So I was
Yeah.
like, if this guy has had a concussion, or even like a mild concussion from any one of those strikes, that puts a lot. I felt like the onus, like the pressure was on me to preserve this guy's health,
Yeah.
like when it should have been on the organizers.
Which is
I
not
was
the
like,
mental space you want to be in when you're in a fight with somebody who can also catch you and fuck you up. And
yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
sense of
I mean, I was,
self-preservation also needs to be taken into account for. Meanwhile, you don't want to cause this guy brain damage who just got concussed a month
so
ago.
I felt like I was like really mixed feelings going into this fight. I mean, like usually my mentality going in is like they're gonna try and hurt me, so I have to make sure that they cannot hurt me by hurting them
Hurting them
enough that they
first
can't hurt me back.
and more
Yeah,
violently.
exactly. Hurting them worse earlier. So, but in this fight, like I'd seen what had happened to the dude. Yeah, I just felt really strange going in, and I think the first minute, I catch him with a hook. I just kind of like I tap him with his hook as he's kind of like trying to move away from me. I think he was a bit nervous, probably because he had just been knocked out a month earlier. But
That'll
I
shake your
jump,
confidence for sure.
yeah. So I jump in with a hook and I just kind of like ding him with it, and the dude falls down, and I was like, good God, like
Yeah.
it's definitely like something still is going on. So I got on top. I was gonna try and like I ground and pounded a little bit. Was gonna try and work for a submission. He gets back up. We have a bit of exchange. I take him down again, and I've mounted him, and he turns his back. And at this point, I'm like, dude, I'm talking to him like, dude, you don't have to keep going. Like, let's just give just give up. It's okay. Like, you don't have to continue. And he was like, no, 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 it's okay, it's okay. Like, so I managed to find the rear naked choke and finish him. But I felt really weird coming out of that fight,
Yeah.
because I'm punching this guy knowing that he's probably still damaged. I tried to do the best that I could to like ensure that he wasn't hurting any worse. Um, but
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's a testament to the flaw of the structure. I mean,
yeah, but the league format makes no sense when you're doing combat sports. So I think these things have to be considered. That was part of the reason why I felt like if somebody who was a competitor was involved in this whole not actively competing in the competition, but a former competitor was involved in that decision making process, and these mistakes maybe wouldn't have happened. These things
yeah,
would have
because
been considered already.
any fighter knows you can't schedule fights within a month from each other. And especially when
Yeah,
everybody has to fight everybody, because okay, what if you're going against the favorite in the first round? And I mean, I know you brutally head kicked one dude in one of your fights, and then
yeah.
didn't he have a fight scheduled like 3 weeks or a month later? I
No,
don't know.
luckily that was the last fight in the tournament.
Oh
So
God.
he was, but I
But
think
it had it been a
they had
different
a
time, the same thing could have happened, right? I mean,
yeah.
this thing happened throughout all of the different weight classes. People getting KO'd and then coming back, being expected to fight later, because even though they lost, they could still get to the finals if they can get enough points through beating other people.
Yeah.
And yeah, the concept is just not applicable to MMA for
There
sure.
was, I mean, I was in these group chats with like the other people within the tournament, right? And there was a lot of debating going back and forth. Some of the fighters felt like, well, we're fighters. We should just be able to, this is part of what we signed up for. You should just be like, just tough it out. Like, yeah, you're gonna get hurt. You may get hurt. You may get damaged. But you're you're fighting in a cage. Like, what do you expect?
What is this? Some
And
1990s just bleed
yeah,
USA
so
bullshit? Like, what are we doing here?
on
Oh my God.
on one hand, I understand that, but on the other hand, this is an amateur tournament.
Yes, you're not
You
getting
know,
paid for this.
yeah. Okay, so here's the problem. They were paying people.
Yeah, they were getting paid a little
This,
bit. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
this is
Fair.
my third issue with the whole tournament, with the whole MIMMA format, was that they were paying people. Now, once you pay an amateur fighter, they change from a competitor or an athlete to a prize fighter. You know,
Yeah.
especially in Malaysia, especially like some of these purses were like they could go up to several hundred or 1,000 ringgit. If you are making, say, like they said the average family in Malaysia, average household makes about 3,000. Like if you taking the whole country into account. If you're making 3,000 and somebody offers you even 500, that makes a difference. That can be
sure.
rental, that can be electrical, that can, if you have kids and that's like part of their, the cost of their schooling, that makes a difference. So just to kind of dangle that in front of people, I felt like was a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, there's a reason why
then
amateurs aren't paid, and it's not just because, people don't value what you're doing, right? I mean, there's a reason why, and it's that
Yeah.
exact reason. It changes the incentives, and first of all, when you pay people, they're way more willing to just be super aggressive to fuck you up, right? Like you're fighting for your food, you're fighting for your meal, you're fighting for your rent. It's not like an amateur fight can be a friendly competition. Some people, like Teben, can just touch gloves and you can have a good old fashioned scrap and it's not the end of the world. But then you'll get some people in there who are going to take your head off and you might not be the same afterward when people are fighting for their rent. You know what I mean? It changes all the incentive structure. Actually, Polina was talking about that on one of the podcasts about how MIMMA kind of set the precedent that amateur fighters need to be paid. And now it's very difficult to ask for people to fight even amateur without being paid.
Yeah. Well, the issue is not just like that people will go aggro and try and kill you. I mean, people may try and do that anyway.
Yeah.
I felt like the issue was that the risk, the understanding of risk is different, right? Because if nobody is getting paid, then you don't have to. You're like, okay, I can take this risky fight, or I can not take this risky fight.
You don't have to go out on your shield in the same way.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid anyway. Whereas if somebody's like, well, I'll pay you $1,000 to take this fight that's a month after your last fight, and you may get hurt really badly. You were already hurt badly last month. You may get hurt badly again. You're like, well, this $1,000 will make a difference in my kid's livelihood, in my family livelihood. So I'm going to do it. Yeah. So
yeah, that's a good call. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I felt like that's the big thing for me is that I have to get in this like really dark space in order to fight, but at the same time I kind of like I empathize with these people. Like as soon as I get out, I'm like, Jesus, what did I do?
Yeah.
After I got the head kick, that head kick knockout, I felt terrible because the week before I've been trying to do research on this guy, trying to figure out what what his style is or whatever. Of course, because it's MIMMA, there's no footage. I can't find anything. All like my cousin was trying to help me do some research, and she sent me like, okay, I found something on his Facebook. He's got 2 kids. Like,
ew. Yeah.
Why are you telling me about his kids?
Yeah,
I want to know about his
you
kids.
should tell me he lives in solitude, and you don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, tell me that he beats his wife or something. You want to tell me something personal.
Exactly.
But
he's got 2 kids. He's a really nice guy, Ahmed, who's just trying.
But knowing this guy, he's a cop. He's got 2 kids. He's working hard. I assume he's working hard to give them a decent living, a livelihood. And I was like, shit. As soon as I got the head kick, I looked at him like, damn, man, I feel bad. I felt bad. So, in the moment, you do what you got to do. I was kind of talking to the ref during that fight as well, trying to, because I think I'd heard him before the head kick. I already kind of, he's done.
I think you hit him with a body shot.
Yeah, I hit him in the body.
They dropped his elbow, and then I opened up the head kick.
Yeah, it was like teeps to the body. I hit him like a front kick or teep or something, a body kick, and he was like winded, and I was like, okay, dude's done. Like, he's not coming back from here.
It's the same thing when you fought that Muay Thai fight. When you had that Muay Thai fight and you were just busting that dude up, and then you finally hit him with the body shot toward the end there, and the referee was like, okay, fine. It's like, dude, save this guy because you were fucking that guy up.
Yeah. I mean,
but at least that was a paid professional fight. But even still.
Yeah, paid wasn't that much, but I don't know. It's just I like the competition. I like the creativity that allows you. I like also how much you learn about yourself through this whole process. For me, but I don't revel in other people's suffering. Like in the moment during the fight, yeah, sure, maybe a little bit, but like afterwards, like they're human beings, You see them as human beings. So I think that this very like complicated moral tapestry that is MMA.
Well, let's run with that.
That's competition.
We'll transition a little bit from MIMMA and start talking about that, because I think it's one of the most interesting. You and I always talk about sort of the psychology of fighting. Every single time we end up talking, we always end up down this rabbit hole. And I really think it's interesting because you and I both are the type of people that don't particularly like hurting people. And then we also both kind of have to go to that dark place. And in some ways, I think fighting and training, of course, offers us a lot of catharsis that maybe if that energy were directed toward another, if it was directed into a more destructive way toward bad tendencies, drugs, alcohol, this or that, like, you know, martial arts in some sense, I think for both of us saved us, and it has for many, many people, because it gives you a way to channel that aggression that you have, especially when you're young, you're a teenager. Like that's when both of us really started finding martial arts. And there's something to be said for that, right? It's like that shadow self that you try to get under control with that aggression and negative thoughts, and you can channel that into something physical and to something positive. You get that aggression to sort of fight for you rather than fight against you. And it really is this interesting tapestry of confusion and being conflicted, and like, why do I like fighting? Why do you like fighting? It's fucking stupid. And when I'm there, I hate it, but I still want to do it. And I get really confused and conflicted. So I don't know. What's your take on this? Why do you do it? What was your initial drive toward it? Because I know you started training even younger than I did. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts on sort of the whole thing are. Why you started training, what led you to it, and then how do you sort of integrate that into your adult life in a positive way?
Yeah, I'd say like why I started. I mean, I started training when I was really young. I started training karate, I think, when I was maybe 10 years old. And at the time, it was just because I sucked at all other sports, and my mom wanted to put me in something that was like protect me from bullies or whatever. But for me, it was like the reason I kind of got into it is because of the expressive side. You know, you could do these things with your, um, you know, do these wild movements with your body, like that both express a part of your personality, but in a competitive sense.
That's the
You know, I
arts
felt like,
part of martial art, right? It's
yeah,
self-expression, like dancing or something. There's
yeah,
something there for sure. And
yeah.
everybody's
I've always
unique.
been like I've always been like an artist as well. Like I drew since I was a child. And so like for me, like, yeah, like the dark place, like art was my way of getting it out. Martial arts was another form of art to me, especially once I started getting into like dancing. I understood my connection to martial arts a little bit more. So it's like, okay, this is like an individual art form that you're creating in this like pressure cooker environment, against a resisting opponent, where you're constantly, it's basically like, it's like rapid fire problem solving. You know, somebody's throwing these problems at you and you're trying to solve them, create your own problems for them, whilst expressing yourself through your physical medium.
And with having really severe consequences associated with your ability to solve the
Yeah.
problem or have your problem be solved.
Yes. 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 Well, like, yeah, that's where like the adrenaline component comes in, like uh, that rush. You know,
Because the
I
worst
think
feeling
first
is
time.
when somebody solves your problem, right? When it goes the other
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
And it's like, oh,
The
fuck.
worst. No,
It's
but
like, oh, problem
I think
wasn't
it's
complex enough. Fuck.
that, yeah, like once you spar for the first time, like that adrenaline rush is like nothing else. I
Hmm.
think I was doing karate, and yeah, I liked it, but like the forms were really boring. I didn't really get into like the, self defense stuff. It wasn't until like I hit sparring that it really like clicked for me, and I just never did anything else. Like I basically just like would spar with people only, would not learn the forms, wouldn't bother learning self defense stuff. I was held at the same belt level for like 2 years, which for karate, or like, was it, yeah, we're like a year, which for karate is ridiculous because you can get like your black belt in like 3 4 years.
Yeah.
So it was, I found that thing for me, which was like this intense pressure cooker of violent self-expression. um, but yes, sparring is also very different from competition.
Yeah, it's
Competition,
another level.
yeah, I hated competition growing up. I did it like once during karate, during my karate days. Never did it again. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
So what do you think it is that drives someone like you or me or anybody that fights or competes? That I would say most people, I mean, you're an architect, that's your profession. You're a dad now. I was a fucking teacher. Like, what do you
Hmm.
think in, teaching and artists tend to lean a lot toward martial arts because I think there's something that they can see with that sort of self-expression, right? That
Mm.
they can relate to. They see the beauty in it even through the lens of the violence that's ensuing, right? And I always just kind of wonder, like, what is that thing? Because most of the some people that I know that fight are just fighters. They want to fight. They love to fuck people up. Like, there's a
Hmm.
subset of that type of person, but generally speaking, most of them are really kind of soft spoken. I feel like you have to get over a really big hump to go from training to competing and fighting, especially if you do have a sort of, like maybe me or you're introverted, you have a softer disposition most of the time. I just wonder what that thing is where you can sort of, it's almost like you have to suspend all disbelief, right? Like if I'm a normal person, an everyday person, what on earth would make me want to sign up and then fight for people's entertainment? Like, it's a real mental leap to go over that. And I wonder, it's different for everybody, but I don't know. What do you think that is for you? Like taking it to the competition level as opposed to like, oh, it's a good way to stay fit or it's a really interesting craft to take up in your spare time or
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like there are two different things, right? Like the craft component of it. I think everybody who gets into martial arts are all bit by that bug initially. They all fall in love with like the art form itself, and then eventually, like you hit a point where it's like you're just kind of carrying on with the art form, with like the love of the art form itself. But for me, I think I always had kind of I'm a competitive person by nature. I have that kind of slightly competitive edge. Um, so to just do it and know that I was good within the context of my training wasn't enough. Like I had to like test it.
yeah,
You know,
there's
I had
always
to.
this
It was
question in
testing
the
the
back of your
skills.
head, right? Like when you're
Yeah,
training, there's always this kind of nagging little question in the back of your head that's like, yeah, but would it work for real? You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah. Of
that
course.
question just fucking beats you in the back of the head, and you're like, would it work for? What does it really feel like to get hit hard? You know what I mean? Like, is this proven? Like, okay, sparring, you're going like anywhere between 30, 60%. Like, what if it's 100? Will my technique stand up to it? Is this, that's a gnawing question, I think, in the back of a head. That's for sure a motivating factor for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it's also a community thing. Like if you come up in a gym that's full of people who like fight,
Yeah.
uh, then it's a part of the culture. When I started training Muay Thai, I was training in New York. Um, yeah, and this is like a gym full of people who are just like regular professionals. I don't think anybody there was a professional fighter. You know, they're just like some of them were like graphic designers, engineers, musicians, whatever. Like it's very diverse mix of people. But I think quite a few of them had like gone into had amateur fights. You know, almost everybody there trained with the amateur fighters. There was no like division between regular people and fighters. There was just like a spectrum. And so when you see it as like a spectrum and not like as a clear division, like, oh, you're the regular people, here are the fighters, but it's just like there's people who train, there's people who have like that kind of who continue to advance their training towards those experiences, towards competition. Then it kind of like normalizes the competition aspect. So for me, it was like I kind of came up in that culture. I was like, you can train for a long time, but you have to kind of, if you want your training to advance, you need to compete. You know,
Yeah, I think
and that
that,
there's
good.
and having like a very deep amateur competition culture was also helpful because in New York, I don't think there's like a handful of pros, but the amateur scene was huge. There's like so many gyms. Like there's the Friday night fights, which were big events that they would have like every I think once or twice every month. Uh, and every gym would just kind of like send fighters to it. It's like this ritual. Like the whole city was alive with like that amateur scene. So you felt like you're part of this big community. You're like, whether you were supporting fighters or training yourself, you're always kind of like connected to that competition.
Yeah, I mean, if I could give advice to any young fighters, especially in Asia, it would be to fight more amateur fights. Like, if you're thinking about like, oh, do I want to compete? Do I want to take a fight? Do I want to take a fight? Take a bunch of amateur fights. First of all, you
Mm.
get desensitized to fighting. It doesn't seem as overwhelming when you have a lot of fights. Look at the boxing model. I mean, those guys have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fights, and then they
Yeah.
start their pro career, right? Unlike even the Thais. If you think of the Thais and sort of amateur boxers, they'll typically have around the same amount of fights, right? A couple
Mm.
hundred, something like that, 100, 200, whatever. Yet
Yep.
the career of the Thais ends 26, 28 generally. I mean, some Thais make it a bit longer. But the career for amateur boxers, then going into pro boxers, they can still have a pro career for 10 more years after that, right?
Mm.
Partly is because their skills have developed to match, but also because if you take an amateur fight, the damages are not the same, the consequences aren't as severe, the referee stopped the fight earlier. Like, in a pro fight, most of the time the coaches or the fighter themselves will go out on their shield, right? If you're in there making a lot of money like Tony Ferguson or something, right, he doesn't want the fight to be stopped even though he's getting his ass whooped and he could fucking have brain
Mm.
damage by the end of that fight. In the amateurs, that's taken away from you. You don't get the
Right.
right to go out on your shield because we know what you don't know. We know that this is one fight and it could be many, and you're still trying to figure out what you may not know. That you may want to fucking go out there and get bludgeoned to death because you think you're tough and you're young and fucking full of fire and energy and all that kind of shit. But the judges, the referees, the code, we know, we've seen it before. Just go out there, fight hard. You lose, you get tagged, drop a couple shots, boom, done. Fat gloves, shin pads. You know what I mean? You're going to be safe. And
Yeah.
through training and training and training and lots of amateur fights, you're going to develop a level of technique and a level of comfortability in that situation that you won't see
Mm.
here. I mean, how many, if you had to take a guess, in Southeast Asia, or we can say Malaysia or Singapore, how many fights do you think the average fighter has before they go pro? The average here compared to two,
I'd say
one,
maybe 3, 4, if I'm being kind.
extremely low. And how many fights
Yeah.
would you reckon they had before that? Zero? Like
Yeah.
none?
No. None. Zero.
I mean,
No,
that's
so many
insane.
people jump into the pro rankings here, or jump into like pro fighting here. But I think it's also because like a lot of these small promotions won't have that division between amateur and pro. They won't kind of like make it as clear. Like I know
And if there's no
I
amateur
want to.
scene, what are you meant to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So you have to hold these amateur events.
But I
I
also
don't know.
going back to this a little bit, dude, because I again this fighter psychology thing really interests me. When did you think you'd? How many fights do you think you had before you sort of turned the corner and you understood what it was and you could really let loose in there? Because I always my thoughts are the key to being a good fighter is and to hit that level of self-expression where is to hit that flow state. Right, that's always the
Mm,
goal is to be able to find the flow state. If things aren't vibing right, you just can't hit it. You have to reach a
mm,
sort of technical, it's like being a dancer or something, right? If you're a shitty dancer and you don't know the choreography yet, you're never going to be able to find the real joy and find that flow state. But once
yeah.
the choreography is in you and your muscles can just take over, then that will translate. You can hit the flow state and then it looks beautiful, right? When do you
Mm.
think, how long did you have to train before you were able to sort of, while people are throwing bones and shit? I mean, I was really impressed with your pro Muay Thai fight because that was your first fight without shin pads. It was your first
Mm,
fight in those small gloves, and you never know how you're
mm.
going to react to that until a fucking bone hits until they throw a kick and you
Yeah,
and
it's
you
really
get bone on bone,
scary.
right? You don't know until you feel it for the first time, but you
Yeah,
definitely hit the flow state in that fight. So I'm curious as to like what your take is on that.
yeah, that was the first time I had a kick check bone on bone. That was terrifying. No, but I think one thing that helped me, I didn't really feel comfortable, I'd say, with competition until, yeah, I think right before that fight. So it took me losing in MIMMA back in 2014, and then having my to kind of like start changing my mentality. Um, Back in 2014, I fought I fought MIMMA as well, same tournament. I won 2 fights. Then the I met Aguilan in the 3rd round, and I was really nervous for that fight.
Aguilan Tani, he fights in one right now, just for a little
Yeah,
context
yeah,
for the listeners.
yeah. He was, we had I think trained together once, maybe once or twice, and everybody was like, okay, this dude's one of the favorites to win the tournament. Like I was one of the favorites to win the tournament. So I knew I was gonna have to face him at some point, but yeah, I was nervous, and I think my coaches were nervous as well, and I
It's a
trained.
step up. It's a big step up in competition, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, but I overtrained. I went nuts. I was like, I think maybe a day or 2 days before the fight, I had a pad session with my Thai coach, and I was just like killed myself on the pads.
Kruwat, right?
Yeah,
And Kruwat will destroy you on the pads.
yeah, and I was I was training like the week of the fight. I was really, really, really anxious, and because of that, like I just fucking and the mental weight that I put on myself, like feeling like I needed to win, feeling like I had all this pressure, feeling I just fucking I flatlined after the first round. I just totally dumped my gas tank in the first round, um, and yeah, I just got choked out in the second round. I basically I think even before he got the submission on me, I mentally had cracked. I think because physically I was worn out, and mentally I was worn out, and so after that fight, having a couple months, a year or so to think about it, and then taking the Muay Thai fights, I realized that you cannot, you after a certain point, you just have to, at a certain point in your training, you have to say, this is what I've got, and I'm going to work with what I've got. I remember I read this quote from Marcelo Garcia that had a big impact on me. And he said, you shouldn't be basically trying to invent new weapons for yourself going into a tournament. You should know what you have, know what weapons you have, and just sharpen your swords. That's all you're doing. And then the week before the tournament, just the rest of it is just mental preparation. I don't remember the exact quote, so I'm just a shitty summary. But essentially, he was saying, you don't you basically pare down your training to the essentials, to know what you're good at, have confidence in what you're good at, and then when you come down to the last week, it's just mental prep. And so I went with that strategy on that for that Muay Thai fight, my pro Muay Thai fight.
You were loose. You were having fun in there. It was not like the end of. It didn't look like the end of the world for you.
Yeah, I was training hard. I was super relaxed, but it was because I was training hard during the month or so, 2 months leading up to the tournament, leading up to the fight. The week of, I was just chilling. I was just shadow boxing. I was visualizing. I started doing a lot more visualization, which helped a lot. And I actively avoided coaches that I knew would
kill you,
would want to kill me, make me overtrain.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I think for that fight I was working primarily with Grunoy and with Prutam, Grunoy's son-in-law. And Grunoy is in his 50s. He's like a sagely old trainer. And his perspective is very different from the young coaches. Young Thai coaches want you to continue training up until 2 days before your fight, because they're like, well, this is what we did, so you should do it too. And Kunoy is sort of just make sure you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Rest, don't overtrain yourself. His was clearly you could see the experience difference between this OG coach and the young coaches. So I think that was a key thing for me. Even going through the MIMMA tournaments, was that I was like, you know what, I'm not going to try and. I can try and develop skills, but
you can't force it, right?
You can't force it. Yeah,
you have to just vibe. You got to ride the wave, right? You can't try to go against it.
So I knew like, all right, this is what I've got. These are the skills that I've got. I gotta just be confident in that and just, you know, I can work on my cardio, refine some things here and there, but I'm not gonna rewrite the book in like a 9 month tournament where I'm fighting every month. You know, I
Yeah.
just gotta work with what I've got basically. And so I went with a total opposite approach from like my 2014 run. In 2017, I was literally just like, I was almost too relaxed. I had one fight, my fight with Takeaway, which was a really, really, really tough fight. Um, I got married like the yeah, like 2 weeks before that fight. I was in the States. I was straight up. I was hardly training. I came back. I had 2 weeks to train, and then I fought. But I was actually like in a better mental place before that fight than I had been like in my 2014 fights where I was like training all day every day.
Weren't so stressed out
Um,
and everything.
yeah, I was like, screw it, man. If I lose, I lose. Like, I'm just gonna go in there and give it my all because I had that kind of like, you know, that kind of loose mentality. I think I performed better in that fight, even though I still probably got my ass beat more than I should have. I was in a better like headspace the whole way through the fight. I didn't crack. I think that was the thing that kind of scared me about that fight in 2014 with Aguilan. That was something that kind of catalyzed my mental transformation leading up to the Muay Thai fight and then the MIMMA tournament 2017 was that feeling yourself crack mentally is probably one of the scariest things. Like the physical exhaustion is terrifying for sure, but then the mental fatigue and knowing you're like, oh shit, maybe I do have a wall. Maybe I'm not that caliber of person.
Mm. Well, it's interesting, right? Because we all know what that feels like in training. I mean, I don't care who you are. Everybody, if they do hard training, has broken in training before, right? There's just no way, like months of training, weeks of training, years of training, you're smashing the pads, you're getting, like, you have a shit fucking day, something bad happens, you go into the gym, you're just like, fuck this. Like, we all know what that feels like in training. And that's one of the most important things I think about martial arts is that as you begin to train further and further, your breaking point extends further and further and further. It's different in a fight because you're training for a specific moment. And on that moment, you have to be on point. So we all know, I mean, you think when you're a white belt and a beginner Muay Thai and you got hit and kicked in the body for the first time really hard and your liver shuts down, you feel like you're going to shit your pants and you're falling over. Like that's breaking, right? Now, later on, that same body kick, you develop mental toughness. I mean, sometimes you get kicked so hard, there's nothing you can do, right?
Right.
But a lot of times your mind will just shut down, even though your body might be able to just stand up and continue going. And I think it's one of the most important things about martial arts is, and like you said, you learn these things in fights. You mentioned earlier about how one of the benefits to competition is that you learn things about yourself that you could never otherwise learn. And through training, you have these moments where you break. You also have these moments where you overcome. And you hope to shift the ratio more toward overcoming these difficult things as you begin to train more and more. But you learn things about yourself in those moments where you break more. You learn more about yourself in that moment than you ever would. So it's interesting that you say you had the mental adjustment after the loss. And I mean, you're not the first person to say that. That tends to be a universal truth that everybody understands, is that as you continue to do this further and further, you're going to get tougher. You're going to break less. And that shit will translate into other parts of your life. So Ahmed, before we go, I'll let you go soon because I kept keeping you here for a long time. I see you talking to your wife over there. But I had one thing I wanted to pick your brain about, man, because it's really two things. First is like, where do you see yourself in this martial arts journey going as the years go? We're getting older, you know what I mean? Like, who knows how many of the days of pro fights are in front of us, or are they mostly behind us? I remember because we talked so much about T-Ben on this podcast, that he came to me one time. This was like, I think right around the time that Pascal, that movie he was in, came out. And he came to me to the gym and we trained and everything. And he just sat down next to me and he goes, "Oh man, I think, I need to take another fight." And I was like, "Why would you want to take another fight?" And he goes, I just keep telling people that I'm a fighter. And I can't keep telling them that I'm a fighter if I keep on fighting. And I was like, dude, you don't need to, you fought already. That shit's in your past. And then I told him, I was like, listen, man, let's say you fight for 3 more years. Let's say you fight for 5 more years. Like eventually that shit's going to run out. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to quit training? Are you going to define yourself by this thing that you can't, I mean, you can't do it into your 40s and your 50s and your 60s. And I told him, I was like, the better approach is to be a martial artist. That you can do that into your 60s, into your 70s. You can still work on your craft. You can see the growth, all of the shit that you wanted to do in your training, get better, get skills, stay fit, overcome those mental struggles. That shit's going to continue. It's a never ending cycle, right? So I think it's probably healthier.
It doesn't sound as cool.
No, it doesn't sound.
It doesn't sound as cool saying you're a fighter.
But if you're a fighter, I think it sounds cooler, man. Honestly, martial artist to me, that's the best. That's right there. And plus, dude, if you fought, you're a fighter. Like, you don't need to prove that to outside people. So I'm curious with you, because one of the things that's really interesting about you and the people that I've met in my years of training in Asia is that everybody here, there's so many high-level professionals here. You're an architect. I have doctors at my gym. One of the owners of my gym is a lawyer. You know, there's something really special to me about these martial artists who seek out this discomfort and this suffering to master a craft in their spare time that involves them getting punched, kicked, choked, all that kind of shit. It's one of the most amazing things about it is this crazy community of people who get together in their free time and just fuck each other up for fun. You know what I mean? So I'm curious at this point in your life where you see martial arts taking you, and then how you kind of view it now compared to how you did when you were younger.
I don't know. I mean, now I've been out of the tournament, out of competition for a couple of years. I've been injured and dealing with injuries and not able to train. And so I'm thinking about things very differently now. So I was already kind of transitioning towards coaching. I think for me, it's rewarding in a different way, because like you're looking at martial arts kind of more conceptually. You know, when you're training, when you're an athlete, when you're a competitor, you're thinking like, okay, how can I use this technique? How can I? What techniques can help me achieve my goal? But so you're thinking about martial arts through a very like individualistic kind of perspective. But for me now, as a coach, I'm sitting back and thinking about it more as the whole kind of spectrum tapestry of martial arts, trying to see.
That's smart, because conceptual learning is without question the highest form of learning.
Well, I think what I've enjoyed about MMA, of my experience through MMA, has been kind of bringing things across disciplines. Like, say I started jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai around the same time. And then I got more into like traditional Muay Thai, like, you know, bouncing your front foot, the whole like super like traditional kind of outlook on Muay Thai. And then got back into jiu-jitsu, and then started seeing where things bled over between the two of them. You know, you start drawing concepts from disparate martial arts and saying, actually, okay, there's certain universal truths between like Muay Thai or striking arts and grappling arts. Like, say, any form of grappling, whether it's like Muay Thai clinch or jiu-jitsu or like the clinch in boxing or anything, involves manipulation of like the top vertebrae in your spine. These two, three here, you know. So that's like a principle that carries across everything. If I can control these, then I can control you, whether we're clinching in Muay Thai, whether I'm just like kind of trying to rough you up in boxing, whether you're doing side control in jiu-jitsu.
Can I give you one real quick?
Yeah.
Getting in between the space of the elbow and the knee, right? Like if you're trying to pass my guard, you have to get in between the space of the elbow and the knee to get to the side control. If you're doing Muay Thai, you want to land a clean body kick, you got to penetrate the space between the elbow and the knee. It's a universal truth of
open elbows. Yeah. Open elbows is the goal always. It's how to open an elbow. So these concepts that kind of percolate between all the martial arts, it's something I find interesting, because in the end of the day, martial arts is like manipulation of human anatomy, right?
Against their will.
Yes, against their will. Like whether it's striking it or bending it in some way, you're all like, human anatomy is your target, and so there's certain concepts that can bridge across all of it. So that's kind of where I'm going now. It's more into like the direction of coaching
What about how
kind of
it
seeing
affects
more
your sort of
conceptual.
personal life and your professional life outside of it, like your work, or I mean, these are open-ended questions, right? They're very broad. I'm just kind of curious to as a quick way of addressing a massive topic of conversation.
Well, actually, you brought up the thing about T-bin and like the title of fighter. Um, I'm going through that as well, where like I get introduced, like my contractor on site will introduce me to a subcontractor, like, oh, this guy's a fighter. I'm like, I'm also an architect, but this
And a
is like the cooler
father,
part.
and yeah.
Yeah, like the fighter will always be like the more interesting part of you, and
Yeah.
so uh, yeah, I'm carrying it forward into like my regular life. It's always a talking point in conversation, and but that I think makes it difficult for people who are former competitors because you
To
always
let it
have that.
go. Yeah.
You always have that itch. It is always associated with your identity, whether you compete or not. But because it is, you always want to compete.
Especially when you, as the individual as well, put so much work into fostering that skill set and that identity, and
Yeah.
you go through so much difficulty and suffering to earn the title of being a fighter. If you do it right, if you don't just
Mm.
pop in there one day for after training for a month or something like that, yeah, it does tend to be difficult to disassociate those two things. Do you think that you'll keep training as life goes on and on and on and on? Is this something you would have you put your kids into? And
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep training for sure. And I think like me getting into coaching is also because I have a kid now. I have my son is 8 months old. I'm already thinking about like, okay, when he's like 2, 3, like,
teach them how to leg kick, bro.
yeah, how's he gonna like? Where am I gonna take him to train? Am I just gonna train him at home? So I'm like, I'm trying to plan for like the next phase, I guess.
We got to get you your black
Um,
belt, dude. We got to keep working on that.
I'm a long way from my black belt
Come
right
on,
now.
bro. We got to get you training again. I know that you went back in and then you kind of got ruined by a coaching move that I completely disagreed with, but hurt yourself, or got hurt rather, I would say.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Well,
Um,
training as you get older, right?
yeah. Well, the good thing about getting injured is that it forces. I had like bunch of knee injuries, hand injuries, shoulder injuries over the time, and like every time I injure myself, it forces me to redirect my energies towards working on something else. So I've been trying to get better at boxing now that I can't use my legs. Uh, we'll see. Boxing during quarantine has been interesting.
Yeah, what have you
Lots of
been
shadow
doing?
boxing.
Let's finish up on this point. I mean, all I have is kettlebells. I don't even have space to really box or kick or anything like that. So
No,
I'm
I've been
kettlebells.
using a lot of kettlebells as well. Like just I have a kettlebell and a pull-up bar, and I've just been using those two things and shadow boxing. That's basically it.
How's your knee
Shadow
feeling?
boxing, better actually. I went to physio for the first time in 2.5 months because they opened the physios now, and apparently like my knee is much better thanks to just being stuck indoors and not being able to kick people for 2 months.
Hey, Charmaine said the same thing. She's like, "This is the first time since I started training that I've actually been able to recover from all of these horrific injuries that I've had over the last three
Who would have
years from
thunk?
constant training." Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be healed up and ready to go, and then some people are going to go way overboard, get immediately injured as soon as they walk back into the gym because they're amped to train.
Yeah, I may or may not be one of those
Don't
people.
be that guy. Use the wisdom that you've accrued over years and years of training to not
I
get
know, I know. I just so desperately want to kick someone right now.
I feel you, dude. Me too. I'm fucking Jones and Hart. This is the longest break I've taken from my training in 6 or 7 years. Since before I came to Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what the scene will look like in the next couple months because I mean, I don't know what you guys are going through in Singapore, but here it's like the gyms are still closed. So
Yeah.
I think the fitness industry is going to be hit really hard. It's going to be like the climate's going to be really different. I think for MMA in the next few months.
Yeah, because even if they our circuit breaker is supposed to end in June, I think June 2nd, and even if they
Mm-hmm.
open up, we might be able to do some striking classes with some social distancing
Mm-hmm.
involved. But things like
Mm-hmm.
grappling and all that kind of stuff, I don't know exactly what the plan is. I'm hoping that they just come back full, but most likely they're going to ease us back in with some restrictions and small classes, no direct contact. I hope
Yeah.
not, but got to
But
go.
this is a conceptual problem to all jujitsu coaches at this point. Like, how do you break it down in a way that you can drill it, individually. So now you're seeing all these like solo drills work coming out. I feel like, yeah, it is like the conceptual question of our time. How do we break down the art in a way that an individual can practice it instead of a partner?
Yeah.
You
God, I
know,
hope we don't have
striking,
to.
yeah,
Hope
I
we don't
know,
have to go
striking
too
you have
far
shadow
down that
boxing,
road.
but
Oh my God. Shadow jujitsu. Everybody knows that's the
shadow
most efficient
jiu-jitsu.
way to learn. I did that the other day. I did a Zoom class, and it was like, wall inversions, a lot of, those drills Italo used to do where it's like hip escape on the wall, invert, upside down,
Yep,
and
yep,
some
yep, yep.
standing punches and kicks and shit like that. But I had an interesting little class because I had people doing like some traditional, I've adopted more traditional techniques in my older age. And I'm starting to teach like the back kick and the side kick. I used to always get them confused.
Ooh.
Because I would kind of like do both of them one and the same. And then I like had a little bit of an epiphany. I was like, okay. So I'm going to start, like the knee comes up to the chest and then extends out on the side kick. But then you told me one time that like on the back kick, the heel comes to the butt. And I was like, oh, I didn't really, because I watched other videos of other people teaching it. And then I realized I was confusing like a spinning back kick and like a turning side kick. Slightly little different variation on the two.
Yep.
Right? So
Yeah, it's the benefit of being around a lot of like karate and taekwondo people. So you learn those little things.
I've
But
been
yeah,
playing with
no,
the
like
sideways stance. I've been playing with that in training. Well, before the circuit breaker, playing with the, doing a little bit of like the Michael Venom Page side kick, Stephen Wonderboy from the sideways stance, kind of blitzing a little bit. And people, if I can get a circle to a side, trying to spin. My wheel kicks are better, dude. They're better.
you've been flexing on your students then,
Yeah,
I
totally,
guess.
dude. Totally. Yeah. I gotta mix it up, dude. I gotta mix it up. My boxing's becoming shitty because I'm doing all kinds of bad tendencies in the gym and shit.
Yeah, here dropping your hands and doing this like Roy Jones kind of shit. I've been doing the same
I
thing.
try.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I think as a coach you still want to go out and find new information. Otherwise, you start like I feel like I'm constantly out there looking at what other coaches are putting out there, trying to like watch other fights, just to try and absorb new information.
You ever try a sideways stance? You ever play with that? Your side kicks, your back kicks, spinning back
Yeah,
fists.
but for me, that's not my. I wouldn't go back to it. Like
Oh yeah, you had the
I
base.
transition. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like flow between different bases. You
I'm like,
know.
bro, have you heard of this sideways stance thing? And you're like, yeah, this is my first thing I ever did.
Yeah, that's true. I started there, but I intentionally like didn't go back for a very long time, and only recently I started like playing around with like those side kicks, like snap kicks, things like that.
So when you see like Michael
Um,
Venom Page and then you see Wonder Boy, you're like, okay, there might be something to play with here. That
I
rear
don't know,
hand,
man.
that rear hand,
That's
dude.
still not
That's
my thing.
you
Not
got to
my
mix it
thing.
up. You'll get bored of Muay Thai eventually, dude.
I'll let Tevin do it. I'll let
Yeah,
Tevin do it.
yeah,
He's
exactly.
better at that stuff than me anyway.
All right, man. Well, I think
All
on
right.
that we should wrap this thing up. How was that? Was that fun?
Yeah, we should do it again. I'm sorry, like I'm a little bit low energy right now. I'm still in fasting mode, so only I'm like half. I'm only half present right now.
Yeah, that's okay, man. No problem. I'm gonna get T-Ben on. T-Ben will be on the podcast in a couple days, and then he can tell some
Sweet.
stories, and you guys can compare notes of your
Yeah,
next
yeah, yeah.
fight.
Let me Zoom bomb you guys so I can talk shit to him.
Yeah, no problem.
Send me the link without him knowing.
Okay, sounds good. Just
All right.
ambush him.
Peace out.
All right, I'll
Yeah,
talk to you later, man.
exactly.
Okay, guys, this is the
All right.
Stronghold Podcast, episode 20. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.